Now, I have a question to pose to our male audience. So, for the males in the room, do you feel under siege? Do you feel unappreciated? Do you feel attacked? Are you in any way fearful? Maybe not physically, but for your psychological well being. Well, Ed Bartlett seems to think that men are under attack. He has an organization called Stop Abusive Violent Environment, otherwise known as SAVE. Ed Bartlett, second trip to the truth, not to tell the truth, but second trip on our show. Ed, welcome back to the truth.
Hey, great to see you, John.
Yeah, likewise. So you think men are really under siege?
Well, I guess there's a lot of men feel that they are sort of the scapegoat in the media, in the political discourse. Often it's subtle, often it's blatant. If I can share with you a quote, everybody knows who AOC is.
I'd like to forget about her. I thought about 6 years ago, why are we fueling this person's oxygen? I mean, why are we giving her so much attention? I mean, if we just ignored her, I thought she would probably go away, but instead we propped her up because I guess what she says is provocative, and the mainstream media probably like both her ideology and ratings.
Yeah, if ignoring her was working, I would endorse that approach completely. But I think the reality is that she does very good media interviews. She's well spoken, and she may, when you look at what she says, she may come across as an idiot or a complete ideologue, but still, a lot of people listen to her and sometimes pay attention. Can I give you an actual quote from our good friend AOC? And this isn't a direct quote. Republicans are, quote, able to radicalize and target and exploit a generation of young boys, in particular away from healthy masculinity and into an insecure masculinity that requires a domination of others who are poorer, browner, darker, or a different gender from them. Now, if this is not a perfect example of how feminists talk about the so-called patriarchy, I don't know what is.
Well, if misogynist is a term that describes people that don't like women, what is the term for people that don't like men?
Wonderful question. The term is misandry or misandry. Going back, misogyny refers to people, women with a disdain or even hatred of men. And so misandry is the opposite.
Do misandrists tend to like other misandrists sexually? Is there a correlation?
I have never been asked that question, and I don't think so. I think
you're uncomfortable responding to that question. I can tell. I was a little even uncomfortable asking it.
Well,
but,
fair enough.
I think it is a reasonable question to ask.
Okay.
It does sexual identification relate in any way to females' attitudes towards men? I think that's reasonable to ponder. Maybe not to ask, but to think.
We're getting into some very hypothetical territory. I don't think there's any good data, and I like to always give answers that are based on very sound data, so nobody can accuse me of being an ideologue.
Well, I think if someone were to poll that, it might get a lot of interest. If you don't do it, maybe we will. All right. So one thing that just popped into my mind that I want to ask, and that is, I said that I was not aware of the term that would describe people that hate on men. Do we run the risk of just creating a new, what do you call it, victim for every class of person on earth? I mean, we've got misogynists, now we have misandrous, we've got racist, bigots, globalist, nationalist, isolationist.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Rodney King, I'm sorry, I think he may have had it right when he said, can't we just all get along? How hard is that?
Well, you're absolutely right. We live in a time when people love to hurl epithets at others, and when you probe a little bit, often those people don't even know what the epithet means.
Absolutely.
The word misogyny or misandry are perfect examples. You know, they throw it out there like it actually means something, or there's some good science behind it, but no, that's just ridiculous. So we do live in this era. I will say, kind of personally, I have never referred to men as a class as being victims. I think that, sort of proclaiming or declaring that any group that are victims, you're just creating a barrier to truth, and you're creating a barrier to, addressing the real issues. So I just don't use that word.
Well, I totally agree with you. In fact, Charlie Kirk, when he was on The Truth a year, maybe 15 months ago, I'm not sure, we talked about all the ist. And he and I agreed that they were designed more for control and manipulation than substance. And it had the things that have occurred in the modern day and in real time have validated for me that is true. So I just don't buy into the ist. If someone wants to call me a blank ist, have at it. I don't care.
Right.
You know, the only thing I really care about, the truth ist.
Right. Well, since we're talking,
that's what I want to be labeled as.
Since we're talking about the truth, let me tell you some well-documented facts. This is all based on good science, good research, comparing the status or the well-being of men compared to the well-being of women. All right, the list is 12 different areas. I'm not going to go through all 12. I don't want to bore you, but I'll give you sort of an inkling of what the reality is. Men are dying 5 years earlier than women. There are fewer men in college than women. In the area of shared parenting following divorce, family courts give a huge advantage to mothers compared to fathers, even though mothers are more likely to engage in child abuse.
Okay, say that again. That clicked. Repeat it if you would.
So there's been the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services does a report every year looking at child abuse and neglect. And one of its tables looks at who are the perpetrators of child abuse. And when you look at that table, lo and behold, about 65 to 70% of all child abuse is perpetrated by their mother. All right. You don't hear that very often because it doesn't fit into the feminist victim narrative that they like to put out. Okay. Let me just keep on going through my list.
Oh, okay. But then you coupled that, I think you did, with children favor their mother more than their father.
Family courts.
Did I hear that?
Family courts favor mothers over fathers when they're in a divorce situation, and most typically the father wants 50-50, an even Steven time with the child, but mothers are being pushed. They know that if they can get 80 or 90%, there's going to be a big child support check that will be sent to them every month. Mm-hmm. So they push for full custody or 90% custody. Anyway, so I'm going through my list of examples.
Yes, please.
Homelessness is 72% of all homeless persons are male. Workplace fatalities. I'm talking about, you know, miners or loggers or construction workers who die on the job. It's 92% male deaths from workplace occupational mortality. Anyway, so I'm not going to go through my whole list because I don't want to bore you, but there are 7 areas.
No, I find this very fascinating.
It truly is stunning because it is.
We're up to 6, and you've got 10 or 12.
There's a total of 12.
We'll just read them off. I won't interrupt you.
Okay, so all right. So one of the areas of concern is is the media representations. If you look at the media are consistently, to about 65% have a negative representation of men, even though men are doing as good a job as women. All right, the next area is what's called the boy crisis, and so I'm sure you've heard that term, whether we're talking about child labor or extortion or undernutrition. It's boys who are lagging behind girls. The next area is false allegations. We know from a survey, a nationally representative survey, that that the majority, about 60% of false allegations, are by women against men. Victims of violence, I'm sure you're aware that homicide figures show that it's men who are victims, like 85% compared to women. Next, we know that the criminal system, when a man and a woman commit the identical crime, men are more likely to be arrested, to be put in jail, to be charged, and to be convicted. On every single indicator, men are treated more harshly at every step of the criminal legal process. Next area is domestic violence. We know that from the CDC, it's even Steven. It's an identical number of male victims as female victims each year. But when a male victim wants to get help, like an abuse shelter, or he can't find it. Okay, he's dismissed. He's told, "Oh, you must be making this up. You don't need any help." And then last but not least is the area of reproductive rights. Men have zero say on the decision whether to abort a child. So fathers are left out on that score. So if you've been keeping track, I've gone through all 12 areas, and it's not just the United States, by the way. These numbers I've been giving you, they are true globally. So anytime you hear the word patriarchy, you should laugh out loud, because there is no such thing as patriarchy. If there really was a patriarchy, the all-powerful patriarchs would obviously would do something to get more boys in colleges, to address the lifespan gender gap, on and on and on. So I've covered a lot of information in a very short period of time. But again, this concept of patriarchy is a total. It's just simply not true.
Well, I wonder if there are external explanations that don't align with necessarily that life is unfair to men. Like, for instance, men comprise 67% of the workplace, to women roughly at 56%. I think that's right. And I wonder if that, and men typically, stereotypically, I should say, are the breadwinners. Would that stress not somewhat account for the longevity of men versus women?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
also the workplace deaths? although that's pretty skewed. If 67% of men are in the workplace, but 92% of the deaths, um, I don't know. There's no question that, in my mind, men aren't supposed to have feelings. Men aren't supposed to show any weakness at all,
Exactly.
a la Donald Trump. And when I was a kid, the motto was "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me." Aren't men just supposed to be tough and roll over and take it?
Well, absolutely. Of course. I grew up with those same cliches being thrown at me, and I never challenged them or doubted them just because that was the cultural environment that men can, and to this day, boys grow up in that environment. So here we are. I'm here to challenge this narrative. First of all, challenging the narrative of patriarchy, which is utterly, completely untrue. But there's a broader narrative that you've just brought out that we need to examine it.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I said to one of my kids the other day, I said, in this family, I am the disciplinarian. I am the breadwinner. I'm the one that tries to motivate you to be your best in life. And mom, who I love, 48 years of bliss, 49 in September if we make it, is the director of entertainment. And so all I hear is how wonderful mom is. Well, for 43 years, I've lived with how wonderful mom is, and I happen to agree. But all I get's a ration of grief because I'm the bad guy.
No, there is a lot of truth what you're saying. I mean, you and I, I think we're of a similar generation.
Poor pitiful me.
and I've always been more of the disciplinarian. I try to be a very fair and just disciplinarian, but maybe that tends to put me, stereotype me as the bad guy. I don't know. But
well, me too. But what does mom say? Wait until your father gets home. I mean, what chance have we got?
Right. So, but I don't want to leave the impression that these things that we're discussing now are sort of forever stuck in the reality of our society. No, they're not. We have the ability to challenge these, to talk about them, to say maybe it's not fair that we're that we're putting men into this box and in some ways it's not a fair box because, hey, why can't mom also be the disciplinarian? So anyway, again, the point I'm making is these stereotypes of oppressive patriarchy. It is so false that it's laughable.
Well, define patriarchy. You use that term. Have used that term a lot, and I mean, I think I know what you're saying, but break it down for us.
Patriarchy is basically the belief. It goes back to a book written by a woman named Kate Millett back in 1970, and she claimed that all of the power of society rests with men. And she did not make a subtle or nuanced statement. She said it blatantly. Men have all the power, and therefore women are inherently and necessarily victimized by the existence of male power. And that's been the unifying theme of feminist ideology ever since that book came out, 1970.
Well, I mean, I think there is some truth in that. I would love to be a fly on the wall when someone says that to Marjorie Taylor Greene or even AOC, perhaps. But we live in a world where there are laws of man, which we can change. We absolutely can change those. But we also live, like it or not, in a world governed by the rules of nature. I don't think we can change that. I mean, biologically, men are stronger than women. Fact. Now, there are exceptions, clearly. And I'm talking about in physical strength. In terms of mental strength, I would argue that men and women may be 50-50. Women may even have a slight edge. I'm not sure. But are we not supposed? Are we supposed to ignore the laws of nature that are blatantly apparent to all of us when we contemplate these social issues?
Well, I'm not going to answer that yes or no, but I'm going to bring in another piece of the puzzle. And that piece of the puzzle is called chivalry, right?
Yeah.
Chivalry is a very powerful motivator in human society. And I'll give you one example. 1994, the Violence Against Women Act was passed by Congress and signed into law by Clinton, right? It was Joe Biden who was the moving force. He was a senator at that time. Now, remember, I said just a few minutes ago, the Centers for Disease Control says the number of male victims of domestic violence are almost identical to the number of female victims. So why would we have a law called the Violence Against Women Act, which obviously ignores the problem of violence against men by their wives or girlfriends? Well, I think the answer is chivalry. There is a strong strain of chivalry in not just our society, around the world. so when feminists decry the existence of patriarchy, they're saying the exact opposite of the truth. Especially male lawmakers, legislators are very motivated by, hey, let's do what else can we do to help women, to give them a foot up, a step up compared to their to men. So chivalry is a very powerful motivator, but feminists will never even admit the existence of chivalry.
Well, that's just silly. I mean, that is not being truthful, because I think that men do bend over backwards to elevate women. If you subscribe to the belief that men are the stronger sex in terms of physicality and in terms of being the breadwinner and climbing the corporate ladder, if you acknowledge that or you agree, then I think those same people work overtime to try and
Right.
exalt women in our
Yeah.
society. We open doors for ladies. We ask ladies to order first in restaurants. We stand for the lady when she comes to the table. I mean, I could go on with several other examples. I mean, when I
Don't
was in law
don't
school,
don't
the
forget the Titanic. Women and children first. That's another example of chivalry.
absolutely, and so when we talk about um, Israel bombing Gaza, it's always look at all the women and children that were killed. I mean, that we draw these differences, I think, for intellectually sound reasons. Yet, feminists, on the other hand, don't want to acknowledge any of that. I remember vividly in law school opening the door for the law school librarian, and she said, "After you, Mr. Gordon," not politely, but bitterly. And I just said very politely, "I'm sorry, I did not realize that the women's movement was a substitute for good manners." And actually, Ed, I'd open the door for you for that matter. Not because of differences. It's just the way I was raised. It's called humility and it's called good manners.
Well,
What is the matter with that? Why do we have to politicize everything?
well, and you're absolutely right, and I appreciate your offer to open the door for me. I do happen to be of sound body and sound mind, but I do appreciate the
Well,
thought.
maybe you'd open the next one for me. It's just kind of a symbolic
This,
way that we
this,
can show respect to
it's
one
just showing
another.
respect and courtesy to your to others, but
And it's not a political statement. It's not a put down. It's a way to exalt someone else in my
but but
small
it,
brain.
but the example you just gave, and I've heard that many other men having that same experience, is a perfect example how feminists seek to not only politicize, but to disrupt fundamental relationships, positive, helpful relationships between men and women, in order to politicize our society and to promote this narrative, this ideology of victimhood. And I'm here to call it out. Say it's been a very dangerous, harmful narrative to us.
I couldn't agree more. I think, to me, the proper response, I'll share with you. I had a conversation with my father-in-law, who I absolutely worshiped. He was one of the smartest, savviest, insightful pragmatist that I've ever known. He was hugely successful in business, and he had a legion of friends and a very long, good marriage. And one day, my wife, who I married, obviously, after we got married, she had financial capacity that I lacked. For whatever reason, I married up, okay? For whatever reason, we just kept score. And I didn't want to, I would refuse to be a kept man. I would not allow her to pay for anything that related to necessary expenses of the household. So I paid the rent, I paid the mortgage, I paid the utilities, I mowed the grass. Yak, yak, yak. I'm not trying to make myself look good. I'm just building into the story that follows. And so she kind of followed suit. And you paid for, I paid for dinner last time. It's your turn to pay for dinner this time when we're out on a date night. And so my father-in-law one day turned to me and he said, Helen and you are excellent mathematicians. You have figured out how to keep score to the fourth decimal place, and you're determined both to give and get 50%. He said, imagine if you abandoned that logic and you just give 100%, and you both give 100%. Instead of ending up with 50%, you both end up with 100%. And I tell you, it chokes me up to think about that conversation that occurred 46 years ago. But it's true, and we both subscribe to the belief, and I think that it has really helped build a strong, lasting, enduring marriage. And it is such a small shift in the way you think and the way you behave with phenomenal results.
Right. Yeah.
Do you feel me?
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that story. And yesterday, my wife and I went out for dinner, and she picked up the bill, and of course that's fine. I don't care who pays the bill, but the example you're sharing, I think, has a broader lesson. Part of the agenda of feminism is not just to push this concept, this narrative of patriarchy. It's also to just break up, disrupt, and eliminate the nuclear family. Now, maybe you're wondering, well, why the heck would anybody want to do something that totally crazy? I'll tell you why. Feminism is based on Marxist ideology. Marxism is all about creating a society of complete, utter, quote, equality, but really what they mean is uniformity. They want to eliminate all distinctions of all social distinctions, whether it's distinctions based on economic class, based on race, or on gender or sex. So, of course, to have a functioning family, you have to have some division of labor. Okay, different people have different areas of expertise. Division of labor in families has always been the a fact of life. The family has always been the basic unit of society. Whether we're talking about indigenous societies in Africa, or talking about society in the United States. It is the foundation stone of every society in the world, and anthropologists will tell you that's true. So when you're trying to break up the family, as feminists have been doing, you are really undermining the whole of society.
We'll get right back to the show after this brief word from our sponsor, Masculine Man Essentials. Look, most deodorants on the shelf are full of aluminum, parabens, and synthetic junk. Masculine Man Essentials goes at it differently. All natural ingredients, built for men, and it actually holds up through the whole day long. Whether you're at the office, at the gym, in traffic, or just getting home for the night, try Masculine Man Essentials. I've been using it, and I can tell you, it's the real deal. Head to masculinemanessentials.com, grab yourself a 2-pack or a 4-pack, use the promo code TRUTH at the checkout to save on your first order, and the link is in today's show notes. As you know, we don't put our name on anything that we haven't tried and believe in. So when I tell you about Nessa's Hemp, I want you to listen up. Nessa's Hemp is a Chicago-based company that makes hemp, and it was founded by Anessa. And what she's built is really something. We're talking about clean, high-quality hemp products with no gimmicks, just real ingredients, real transparency, with real results. Whether you're dealing with stress, sleep issues, inflammation, or you just want to add something natural to your wellness routine, Nessa's Hemp has something to offer you. Head over to nessahemp.com, that's NESAS hemp.com, and check out what they've got. Use our promo code TRUTH for a discount just by being our listener. Well, I just wonder if those feminists want to grab the chainsaw while I go put on the apron and cook dinner. I mean, it's kind of silly to me to come up with these Marxist ideas as you describe them. But to me, there is a component of human nature that that I think we all have to self-discipline against, and it's called greed. And if I want, and don't give, that's not the foundation for a good relationship. I don't care whether we're talking about boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife, or just two friends going out for a beer. To me, the Bible says, I was talking to my spiritual counselor one day. He's Reverend Anthony Motley in Atlanta. He is pastor of the largest African-American church, one of the larger in Atlanta. And I was having a bad day. And I said, Anthony, isn't money the root of all evil? And he said, oh, no, John, that's not true. The Bible doesn't say that. I said, yeah, it does. He said, no, John, it's the love of money that is the root of all evil. That's a pretty subtle distinction with a big difference. And so isn't that kind of what we're talking about? Isn't it just pure? Doesn't it just get down to a lot of pure, unadulterated selfishness? And if we will stop being selfish and be more giving, then I think what you give out comes back to you.
Well, let me give another example of how Marxist ideology is playing out in modern day society. So I've had many conversations with people about transgenderism, right? And biological males and women's sports. And I have this conversation, often, and people ask me, well, it just makes no sense. How in the heck is it possible that a movement that claims to be working to benefit women, would be also pushing biological males competing in women's sports? It makes no sense, right?
Oh, I think it makes perfect sense.
Well, let me give you
it relates to what I just said. It is pure, unadulterated selfishness.
Well,
you've worked, you should get the trophy, but I want it and I'm taking it. That's the way I see it.
Well, I think it goes deeper than that. Okay. It comes from the Marxist ideology, the Marxist goal, again, to have a completely uniform society with no distinctions between male and female. What better way to do that is to say, okay, hey, the biological males, you can go ahead and compete in women's volleyball and in women's sports. That's perfectly fine. We'll support that. Well, again, that's completely right out of the Marxist handbook, and why it's doomed to failure.
Well, I think we're saying much the same thing. You're grounding it in political and economic philosophy. I mean, I say on this program all the time, I have come to the conclusion, my confirmed, studied conclusion, that it's not about black and white. It's not about gay and straight. It's not about liberal conservative. Come up with some others. It's about really the haves and the have-nots. And the have-nots, a lot of them, want what you and I have worked for, risked for, saved, invested, and profited. And I just don't, I'm not down with that. I'm all about giving everyone equal opportunity and teaching how to fish, but I'm not about giving the fish, because I don't think we've done anyone any favors. Just like I'm not in favor of giving the trophy for touching the wall at the same time as the would-be Olympic swimmer Riley Gaines, who just got beat politically. It wasn't a physical contest. It was a political contest. And I just think that's so fundamentally wrong. I think most Americans believe that too. But then when you look at the data, 23 states in this nation, to my utter amazement, allow men to compete in women's sports. What has gone wrong?
Yeah.
What the hell?
The complete it's total insanity, and it really reflects how far our society has descended into ideologies and philosophies that are simply irrational, and not just irrational, they are destructive of the normal functioning of societies.
Well, Ed, we have done a very good job. You've done a very good job of identifying the problems. How are we going to solve them? What's the solution?
Okay, so the solution is this. So right now in modern society, American society, we are seeing a growing separation, a growing bifurcation between especially young males and young females, right? And I'm sure you heard about the recent election in New York City, that 3 avowed communists won their elections, and those 3 likely are going to win their election in November, meaning that they will be sitting in Congress in just a few months from now. So that's the movement on the left. The primary supporters of that movement are females, young females, right? In contrast, young males, or males in general, are opposed to this. So we're seeing a growing bifurcation between males and females. We've been seeing this developing over the last 15, 20 years, and it just has gotten worse and worse and worse. So I'm not predicting.
I don't mean to interrupt you. You're making a very serious point, but this is horrible. But when we were fighting this battle during the Reagan era, it was Bella Abzug we were competing against.
I remember
today,
Bella.
It's AOC. They were both from New York. The contrast couldn't be more great. I'm sorry. AOC is a compelling figure. She's attractive. She's well-spoken. And even if you don't like what she's saying, you don't mind listening to her. At least that's what I've found to be true. And that is dangerous.
Yes. So we are seeing a growing separation between male and female in our society. I will have to say that the majority of Americans are not in favor of the growth of communism in our country. If you look at the numbers, it shows that the majority of Americans support the conservative side. They believe in capitalism. They reject the communist philosophy. So I don't think this is going to be pretty. But
Well, it's already not pretty, Ed. I
it's
mean,
already not pretty. Right.
this sounds like it's biased. It's not biased. Republicans and conservatives do not, to my knowledge, and I'm sure there are outliers or exceptions, steal elections nor assassinate their political opponents.
You're
That's
right.
just the hardcore reality of it. And and that's demonic, and it's got to stop, or else we already are on the verge of being a third world country. It has got to stop. Cooler heads have got to prevail. And you know what? And this is just the law according to John. I think the day our country, our government leaders killed the 35th president of the United States was the beginning of the slide of immorality in this country. It continues today in the alphabet agencies. We see it played out over and over again, from Building 7 to Epstein to Butler to Charlie Kirk. Intel's fingerprints are all over it, whether it's the U.S. intel or maybe foreign intel operating inside our country with our own country's knowledge. It is alarming beyond description to me. And I don't have an answer other than for the American people to join hands and say, no, stop it. It's not going to happen. Because, you know, communism, we have explicit laws in this country that forbid communism. Why are these people not violating the federal law or being held accountable for it?
I pretty much agree with what your analysis, John. I don't, in the short term, I think it's going to get ugly. But Republicans and conservatives and men need to stay the course because we are in the right. It's really that simple.
I totally agree. And I don't think it has to get ugly. The only thing I challenge you on is I don't think it has to get ugly before it gets better.
Okay, I hope you're right.
Get every man to get off his ass, stop watching football, quit drinking beer, and use a portion of that time for civic responsibility, go and vote, exercise your freedom of speech, and encourage your coworkers and neighbors and family to do the same. We have the ability to change this. But, I don't know whether you've watched it or not, but this guy, Clav, who's the looks maxer, I've talked about it on the show, is very intriguing to me. He's also extremely funny. But he said, I watched an interview this morning. He said, you just can't ladar. And I was like, ladar, what the hell is that? Live on your butt and rot. And I think that men may have more of a tendency to ladar than some women. I don't know that. I don't have any facts to support that. But I have a lot of ladar friends. And that is their priority in life. It's not, I got a golf game. I got to get to my gin rummy game. Oh, well, Mary Lou invited me and Bessie over for cocktails. I mean, the civic responsibility, voting and doing the work falls to the bottom of the list of priorities. I think we can change it if we don't ladar.
Well, I can't cite any. Well, actually, if you look at the surveys on which are the groups that are most supportive of America, or say that they support America and American ideals, it's vastly in favor of Republicans, conservatives, and men. As far as getting off their duffs and taking action, I don't think men are any less likely to do that than women. So anyway, that's my read.
Well, let's go. Let's.
What?
I mean, it's not. You make a fair point, and I'm not disparaging dudes by saying that. I'm just saying you said it was going to get ugly, and I feel you. I think I know where you're going with that. I think most people in this country have firearms. I sleep with one under my bed. And so my solution is not to take to the streets. And I don't think it would take much to provoke us into civil war. And Tucker Carlson's talked about that. I've talked about it. A lot of people acknowledge the potential of that. I mean, we've seen it in the streets in Oregon and all over the country, in Dallas, Atlanta, New York, West Palm Beach. People were keying cars and throwing Molotov cocktails at the Tesla dealership. At some point, we will get to a tipping point where normal people say enough. And I've got some friends that have talked about it, you know, and they've said if such and such were to happen, I'm freaking taken to the streets. Well, we don't need that, and we don't need to get to that. But we do have to become activists. And that's really all I'm encouraging. It doesn't apply to 100% of men. It doesn't even apply to the majority of men. But if we could get 10% of the people that are low propensity voters to go to the polls, problem solved.
And Donald Trump 2 years ago showed it could be done and showed us how to do it, right? And it wasn't anything, mysterious. He just went on the Joe Rogan podcasts. He went to sporting events that were predominantly attended by men. He connected with the male electorate. And guess what? He attracted the male electorate. And that's the one of the main reasons why he won his election to be president. So I'll say candidly, when I look at Republican parties, I'm seeing very little attempt to reach out by Republican parties to the male electorate. The male electorate has been referred to as the power electorate, and the truth of that is that they have swung elections like the Donald Trump election. But what have Republicans really done to sort of enhance that and do that outreach? Very little, in my experience, and that kind of troubles me.
I agree with you. I think you make a very good point. Donald Trump also appealed to Hispanics. He got 40% of the Hispanic vote. He appealed to blacks. He got an unprecedented 20% of the black vote. He got Amish in Pennsylvania to go to the polls like we've never seen before. Traditionally, they turn out at about 3,000 of Amish people vote. 90,000 Amish voted in 2024. So you and I are on the same page. I am encouraging that all Americans become actively engaged in civics, that it doesn't require that it become an obsession or the majority of what you do, but just allocate an hour a week and we save this country. And the midterms are a perfect opportunity to go out and do just that.
And if I can suggest that viewers look over my shoulder, look over my left shoulder, and there's a banner there. If you can make out the words, it says Men's Equality Month in November and International Men's Day, November the 19th. We are promoting this event. It's actually a global event. It's a universal event. Last year, events for Men's Equality Month were held in 72 countries. So this is, I call it a grassroots effort if you want to, but I would encourage your viewers to check out and to participate in Men's Equality Month, because this is one way to engage with the male voters and say, hey, you guys are not patriarchal oppressors. You're doing your utter best, but nobody is you're not getting the attention and the respect that you deserve to get. So check out on the website Men's Equality Month. You'll see.
I think we've done a great job of doing just that today, Ed. Our listenership typically is about 50-50 male. 50-50 male and female. Today, I think it's probably 75% 25% because half of our women threw the radio across the room and crashed it against the wall, and we've lost them. We'll get them back. Thank you, Ed. It's been a pleasure having you. And it's really, I've had fun with the conversation, but it is a serious topic, and we need a slogan.
Yeah.
Men are people too. There you go.
It's been great to chat with you, and I consider you to be a fellow warrior in this effort to restore our nation back to the notion of truth.
Well, I've gotten to be kind of an old codger at this point, but I refuse to succumb to old age, and I think often about how do I want to spend my time, and it's not at the country club drinking scotch and becoming resentful and talking about my friends. I want to do what I can in my remaining days to make the world a better place. I feel like it's all of our responsibility. And selfishly, I want a better world for my children and grandchildren. So that's what motivates me. And plus, I get to talk to fun people like you, Ed. So thank you for coming on The Truth today. And we look forward to following your progress and having you back on in the days and weeks to come.
All good. Pleasure. You take care.
Happy 4th to you, and God bless you, and God bless America.